It's 10 a.m. right here in Lagos, Nigeria. Good morning, good evening, wherever in the world you're watching from. It's Business Morning coming to you live from Channels Global HQ right here in Lagos. Before you make that trade, let's get to the top stories that set your agenda. We see Nigeria's annual inflation rate has hit a fresh 18-year high as it climbed by 0.92% from the previous figure to 26.72% in September amid a worsening cost of living crisis in the country. According to the official data released by the National Bureau of Statistics, food inflation, which makes up the bulk of Nigeria's inflation basket, rose to 30.64% in September from 29.34% in August, while core inflation rose slightly to 21.84%. At the same time, urban inflation jumped to 28.68%, while the rate of inflation in the rural parts of the country soared by 21.37% to 24.94% last month. With the 9th consecutive month rise in the country's inflation, economic analysts project that the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee under new membership may likely take a hawkish stand to stem inflation when they hold their next meeting in the coming weeks. And the Federal Inland Revenue Service is set to commence a nationwide compliance monitoring exercise on value-added tax and withholding tax for all taxable individuals with effect from Monday, October 23rd. In a statement released, the FIRS say the initiative is designed to bolster tax compliance and revenue collection within the country. The tax agency highlights the exercise, which is in accordance with the FIRS Act of 2007, will encompass accounting years from 2019 to 2022 for taxable individuals whose records were audited by the service up to the 2018 accounting year. It, however, clarifies that for taxpayers whose records have not been audited by the agency up to 2018, the exercise will be extended to include the preceding unaudited years. Let's get a check on the oil market now. We see oil prices steadied today after a more than $1 slide on Monday amid hopes the U.S. would ease sanctions on producer Venezuela as Washington stepped up efforts to prevent an escalation of the war between Israel and Hamas. Brent crude futures was up 16 cents at $89.81 a barrel, while U.S. WTI crude was down 1 cent to $86.65 a barrel. Both oil benchmarks surged last week on fears the conflicts in the Middle East could widen, with global benchmark Brent gaining 7.5% in its highest weekly gain since February. And back at the Federal Executive Council is proposing an aggregate expenditure of 26.01 trillion naira for the 2024 appropriation bill that will be sent to the National Assembly for consideration. This was made known by the Minister of Economic Planning and Budget, Mr. Teku Bagadu, while addressing State House correspondents after the Federal Executive Council meeting in the Presidential Villa. State House correspondent Larry Lasisi reports that President Bola Tinubu chaired the meeting. Take a listen.
President Bola Tinubu arriving for what is the second Federal Executive Council meeting of this administration. The first part of the day's meeting is the swearing-in ceremony for 3 newly appointed ministers. One after the other, their citations are read and they take their oath of office. The ministers were assigned their portfolios, with Jamila Bio Ibrahim as the Minister of Youths, Ayodele Olawande, Minister of State Youths, and Balare de Lawal as Minister of Environment. This brings the number of ministers in the federal cabinet to 48. The meeting then went into a closed-door session. Afterwards, 7 ministers briefed journalists on the resolutions reached. The Council approved the 2024 to 2026 medium-term expenditure framework and the fiscal strategy paper.
The assumptions include oil price benchmark, which I said for 2024, we are assuming 73.96, oil production of 1.78 million barrels a day, exchange rate of 700, then the inflation of 21% and GDP growth rate of 3.76%. The aggregate expenditure is estimated at 26.01 trillion naira for the 2024 budget.
The minister also confirmed that a supplementary budget is being worked on, while the administration is hoping to sign the 2024 budget before the last day of 2023.
There will be a supplementary budget because, of course, there are continuing obligations and there are responses to security which can be immediate. So Mr. President is mindful of those and is assessing them. But Mr. President is also committed to the budget process and its integrity. So he wants to ensure that monies that are appropriated will be can be spent in the period for which they are appropriated.
The Minister of Finance spoke on the $1.5 billion loan secured from the World Bank.
Things are tough. Mr. President is aware, and that is why he has the intervention package, 500 billion naira, as well as other measures, including a wage award and later on a new wage structure for the country. So I think that answers all the questions about the 1.5 billion, why and how soon, and use of proceeds. It goes straight into the balance of payments, goes straight into the reserves to support the effort to improve the country's fiscal situation, to improve government finances.
It has been disclosed that henceforth, Federal Executive Council meetings will take place on Monday each week. It was, however, made clear that that did not necessarily mean that the meetings will hold every week, as that will be determined by the amount of work that needed to be done in the week under consideration. From the Presidential Villa, Lanre Lasisi for Channels Television News.
And still drilling down on the September inflation data, we see the contributions of items on divisional level to the increase in headline index includes housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuel at about 4.47% year-on-year and 0.35% month-on-month. The surge in inflation is primarily attributed to the removal of petrol subsidies and the evaluation of the official exchange rate. Join us now for this conversation is Mr. Jide Pratt, COO, Iona Nigeria, and Country Pilot Manager, Trade Grid. Joining me right here in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning, Ladi.
Yeah, so, we'll have that data. Inflation was expected. It was going to go up. Some even projected it would get to about 28%. But, we're where we are, right now. And definitely it is energy costs is, the whole issue about subsidy, being removed. And we've been having to buy fuel at the pumps for incredible amounts I didn't expect I would ever, see. So talk to me. How can we solve this energy problem in the short term?
It's tough, Ladi. There are triggers to every petroleum product we buy. There's a war going on, Russia, Ukraine. There's the Israel situation, which nobody's sure how it's going to blow out. But the question is that if it blows out and gets to Iran, Syria, then it means that one thing is clear. Prices are going to go up. How do we solve it in the immediate? There are hedging techniques for trading. You decide that I want to take a cargo for a delivery 45 to 90 days ahead, and I want to take that price in now. So you hedge. But is that the total solution? I'm not so sure it is, because the factors that trigger those prices are extingent. You can't control the war, you don't know when it's going to end, and all those put pressure on the price of petroleum product. The sad part is that when we look at it in terms of how can we try to drive it down, one major thing we need to do is find how we're going to refine our petroleum product. The president and his team need to solve that problem, because...
But we've also heard that even though we refine, that doesn't mean prices at the pumps are going to go down.
I'm not so sure that's correct. Prices will go down because the first thing is this: the cost of freight will reduce. There's no rocket science to that. So how marginally it reduces is a different thing. So, you hedge, the freight costs go down a bit, and then the turnaround time. So it means that if I'm going to FOB Mediterranean to bring in a cargo and it's taking me 14 days, if I'm going to the Dangote refinery in Akme, it's basically taking me a 2 to 3 days journey. So I do believe that the freight costs will go down. The refinery efficiency of a brand new refinery will also aid to that. I think those two things might be the quickest wins. LPG is something I also think that we're not looking at enough. For CNG is methane. So what it is that it's pressurized. You're trying to build infrastructure, which will not be short term. But LPG is the lowest hanging fruit. Electric vehicles are also the lowest hanging fruit. So I think those are quick wins that we need to be focusing now.
Right now, and, definitely we expected, pain. Was definitely expected that, taking away subsidy would bring some pain. But although we've had that argument that, subsidy was reduced and all of that, but at this time, would you say the direction the government is going right now can bring some kind of short-term relief?
It's yes and no. The policy is right. Some are not, in my personal opinion. But you see, it's also putting all our eggs in one basket to solve one problem. So look at it this way. If we say subsidy is gone, and you're right, we could not afford subsidy as a country. There's no two ways about that. But government expenditure, has it gone down? I'm not so sure it has. The size of the cabinet, the kind of amount we're spending is as if we're 100% in an okay or surplus situation. We hit 1.7 million barrels for the first time, if you add condensate, in God knows how long. The question is that, how do we sustain that? How do we get to 1.8 this month? How do we get to 1.8 next month? And then 1.8 in December, because OPEC quota, I believe, goes down in January to about 1.34. So it means that the more we bring out from the ground in terms of exploration, the more revenue the country has. But it's also having more revenue and actually spending it, and let me use the word, judiciously. I think those are the things that we need to look at the immediate.
Because sometimes I think in my head, an oil-producing, nation should have, some kind of advantages, when it comes to, the products, gotten from oil. But it seems to be we're not gaining those benefits. It's more like you're an oil-purchasing nation. Why are we still here?
Okay, so the first thing, and we've touched on, we had no refining capacity for so long. I think that changes when the Dangote refinery comes on stream. Because what that does immediately is that we become a net exporter. A capacity refinery of 650,000 barrels per day means that we feed ourselves in terms of distillate. But sub-Saharan Africa becomes a market. So in terms of foreign exchange, we earn foreign exchange. That's one. Oil theft needs to get to complete zero.
Talking about oil theft, now looking at that production, for last month, is it that we're starting to win that battle?
Maybe. So let's be clear. I believe that oil theft has maybe reduced, but I don't think it's zero. I also think that in our computation, there's something called condensate. So I believe that when we're counting our barrels, I believe we're counting crude oil and condensate to get to 1.7. And condensate comes out from gas. It's like liquid when you're trying to extract. So I stand to be corrected, but for me, it's not enough. We have to get more wells to be drilled. So that means you have to make the environment conducive. Foreign investment. You hear a lot of companies are divesting. And some are saying, you know what, I'm going to carry my capital somewhere else. But then again, some local companies are also coming in. The Owando Eni deal is something that everybody's been talking about, Owando buying Eni. So while ENI is pulling out, question is that, can Owando sustain and find further, further oil finds? Then that's a yes. In terms of, you made a statement in terms of we're producing company, and if you don't refine, then it means that you're still going to take out all the crude you have. Take it out, refine it, and bring it back. Look at Saudi Arabia as a perfect example. 12.2 or 12.3 million barrels a day. But they use 3.3. So you see, they've built capacity to explore. And that is something we need to get. We need to just get it right and on a consistent basis.
I saw that report recently said Nigeria State Oil Company, that's NNPC, has begun buying gasoline via cash tenders rather than oil swaps. And that's for the first time in nearly a decade. And the NNPC has not confirmed that, yet. But is that a positive?
Yes. And I look at it from the accountability point of view. A lot of people talk about the swaps, and I believe that there was too much secrecy about the swaps. I don't believe there was enough accountability on the part of the NMC in terms of swaps. So what does this do now? What we're saying is that you're going to use the cash you have. And I mean, when we say cash, it's not literally cash. You open a letter of credit, a deferred letter of credit, 45 days, 90 days, whatever it is. But what it means is that the cash available that you have is what you use for the trades. And it's more, for want of a better word, transparent. So, I mean, that's a positive. How consistent that would be, because we forget the fact that we have a major problem in terms of FX. No international trader is going to trade in Naira, in my opinion. So it means that you need more foreign exchange to be able to keep those deals going on a cash basis. So
it's a positive.
It's a positive.
Do you see the NNPC actually, going forward with this?
I mean, look, the NNPC, in my opinion, and I'm sorry, this is my personal opinion, needs to be what you call a real PLC. You can't own 100% of the NNPC and expect the best. And I'm sorry. We have to get investment, the way NLNG works, so that way, what it means is that people can invest, get returns, but corporate governance ethics rule that place. So if that happens, then they won't have a choice. You have a board, you have a set of individuals who are basically driving that business from a corporate governance point of view. Then I believe that will work. If it doesn't, I'm not too optimistic that it will.
Right. All right, let's look at the global oil market now. Definitely, we've talked about how, the prices there, determine the prices, at the pump. And we've seen a lot of volatility, recently with the, Israel-Hamas conflict. Do we see $100 per barrel oil this year?
In my opinion, yes. I've been saying this for quite a while. There are too much, and that's the word. The volatility is a lot. If the Israel-Hamas war escalates and hits Iran and Syria, there is no way prices will not go north. This is not a prophecy of doom or anything, but that's the reality. The Russian situation is still not sorted out. So for me, what does Nigeria need to do? If oil hits 100, then we need to be getting to 1.8 million barrels a day. Because in terms of revenue, it means we earn more. I mean, you can't have crude oil prices going up.
With less condensate.
With less condensate. And I'm talking crude now, real crude. Even though there's a use for condensate, for me, crude is crude. And it means that once we get to that, there's more revenue. If there's more revenue and we're a bit more, what do I use? Measured in our expenditure, then it could be a good thing. Once we also start refining locally, then it's a great thing.
Yeah, because talking about expenditure there, I know everyone's been talking about, the Senator getting all those SUVs, from abroad. I know definitely that has brought up a lot of, conversations. But, going forward, we get to $100 per barrel. If everything stays the way it is, what do you think will be seen at the pumps?
With crude oil, let's look at gasoline. Gasoline is PMS, so it means that if we're getting to 100, we're probably looking at landing costs around 780. And these are just guesstimates, but you see, it's very, very easy. All you do is use the gasoline codes, and then you try and use that with the exchange rate. Now, the exchange rate is also a major factor. Is it available at the CBN rate? If it's not available at the CBN rate and you have to get it at 1,025, then those prices might be much more. But this is what we're going to see. We're going to get to 700 levels, and I don't know where we go from there.
I definitely do not want to see that at the pumps, because I am I'm struggling at the moment.
Neither do I.
Hopefully. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jide Pratt, CEO, COO, Iona Nigeria. Thank you for your perspective today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right, after the break, Commodities market update is next. Do stay with us. This is Business Morning. Still looking at the inflation numbers for September. Joining me now is Clement Igbanogho, Senior Analyst, Financial Derivatives Company. That's an economist, actually, FDC. Thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning, Ladi. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, but not so fine with that inflation data out yesterday, 26.72%, and food inflation hitting about 30%. Talk to me, how much can the consumer take at this time, the Nigerian consumer?
Actually, Ladi, the Nigerian consumer is taking so much. If we say the Nigerian consumer is squeezed, is understatement. For example, when you look at the per capita income in Nigeria as for 2023, revised per capita income data by IMF, it is $1,755. The minimum wage is $39. For a year is $400. So you look at the gap, you discover that if you look at the minimum wage, if we play the minimum wage versus what a consumer is to spend, the average monthly cost of living is $620. If you run it for a year, that is $704. So if you use the per capita income of 1,750, the consumer is still living on edge. If you use the minimum wage of 400, there is even nowhere for the consumer to find himself. So it's a big problem. Inflation is a thief of value, you know, and for us to have had inflation at this rate from 2021 till now, and expected that by December it will even get to about 30% by IMF estimate, that is really a big deal for the Nigerian consumer. That is going to affect consumption, and that is going to affect aggregate demand, and it requires very urgent and serious policy attention.
Urgent attention at this time. With the way we're going, can we win this war, against inflation? Because we're seeing in other climes, inflation is starting to, ease. How do we realistically win this war in the short term?
Ladi, you remember a section we had sometimes last year when we were talking about Russia-Ukraine war as the cause of inflation. I disagreed that the Russia-Ukraine war was not the main cause of inflationary pressure in Nigeria. And it was too late for us to begin to discover that the external headwinds we are attributing the cause to was not actually the real cause. The real cause are domestic, and one of them is fiscal dominance. You've been raising interest rates since May. You've even raised interest rate much more than those who have gotten results, but we've not gotten results. One of the reasons is because we have very serious problem of fiscal dominance. If you look at the half-year report for expenditure for federal government, you discover that deficit, what we budgeted for deficit, we even had to go 102%. That is above what we budgeted. And for our debt has more than doubled in 1 year. And so when you see this situation where you are trying to contract or tighten the monetary condition, and then from the fiscal corridor, you see a whole lot of what I may call fiscal rascality. Because if you look at the performance for half year, you discover there's no expenditure rationalization. If you have inflationary problem, you begin to think expenditure rationalization. How do I raise revenue and reduce unnecessary expenditure so that I will reduce the borrowing burden? The debt servicing was for half year was at about 100%, 99.7% for half year. And so that fiscal factor is a big factor that is driving inflation. We need to begin to reconsider it. But another thing that is very significant is that if you look at global food index, year over year, it has declined by about 20%. In Nigeria, food inflation has risen to over 30%. One of the factors is logistics problem. There are no roads. So if you look at the urban and rural inflation, you see it widening. The reason is because even when you have the food, it is already given that we have so much post-harvest losses estimated at over 40%. We have low yield, but even the one you produce cannot even get through because the roads are too bad. So by the time they even get to places where they are needed, the cost has more than doubled, and that is a very big factor. And then we still have exchange rate problem. For you to have had your exchange rate depreciate by over 40% in 1 year, you don't expect to have inflation at single digits. So there are real problems on ground, and I think those will take a priority around the policy corridor, both fiscal and monetary policies.
When we talk about, monetary policy, definitely your mind goes to either tightening rates or loosening or holding. But what else does the MPC have in their arsenal to tackle inflation? What else is there?
So far, I think a measure of results is changes in the indicators you are monitoring. That's what baffled some of us last time when the former SYCB governor was saying that the counterfactual evidence is showing that they're making effort. There's nothing like counterfactual evidence. You have raised rate to 18.75, and the short-term interest rate is still at around 11%. It means something is still wrong with it. The liquidity is still high. So when you raise interest rate, you're expected to tighten the monetary condition, but the monetary condition is still loose. So it means that the CBN is not yet utilizing the arsenals within their reach that are supposed to apply to tighten the monetary conditions. And the reason is this: you need to prioritize your macroeconomic objectives. So when you said you are pursuing growth and you are pursuing price stability, at the time that price is at record high, you're going to lose both. So the CBN primary mandate is not growth. It needs to be made very clear. This idea of supporting, we want to support growth, we want to support this one. No, you have to, the primary mandate of the CBN is price stability. But Ladi, if you get price stability right, you will get growth. If you don't get price stability right, growth will elude you. And so the CBN will need to rethink and refocus on its core mandate. You can't be tightening with one hand and be loosening with the other hand. We are hopeful that with the new players at the helm of affairs in CBN, they'll be able to begin to redirect their focus to what matters most, and that is price stability, both general price level and exchange rate.
Yeah, quite an interesting take there. And talking about the budget, we see the federal government proposing 26 trillion naira for 2024 fiscal year. Oil price benchmark at $73.96 a barrel and 21% interest rate. How are you seeing this?
Yeah, well, on one side is a good news. Good news because the budget is coming early. Give and take. I understand that the MDAs are expected to submit their budget proposal by the end of this month. So it's expected that if everything is, the Senate and everybody is up and doing, by the end of the year, the budget is going to be passed. So that's good news. It's also good news that nominally, the budget is coming at 26 as against 21.83 in 2023. But then on the other flank, we need to look at two baskets. In one bucket is the budget benchmark, and the other bucket is the budget provisions. And I'm getting worried when I look at the benchmark and the provisions. The benchmark of oil benchmark of 1.7 for me, Q1 to Q3 so far, the average oil production is 1.2 million barrels per day. Now we are projecting 1.7. I'm hearing the news of 1.7 everywhere as the October output. By the time OPEC releases its report by next month, we will know what the actual value is, because we're hearing different values. But for real value, the data we know, the average for the year so far is 1.2, and then you are budgeting for 1.7. I think that does not sound realistic. But what worries me most is the growth projection. In the past 8 years, the average growth per year is 1.5. And IMF is projecting that in 2024, we are going to grow by 3%. And then we are assuming 3.7%. What it means is that you are going to raise your expectation of revenue from companies because you believe that they are going to have stellar performance and are going to post more revenue and more tax. At the end of the day, will you realize it? Because if you are building a foundation, a house on a wobbling foundation, it's a recipe for chaos. That is on one flank. But then, Ladi, I took time to look at the estimates, the provisions, and I get worried. Why? When you look at 26 trillion naira as a nominal value, it looks big. But if you deflate it, if you discount inflation, using 2023 as a base year, then it is 26 trillion naira. Not sorry, it is 20 trillion naira, not 26, which means it is less than the provision of 2023. Again, if you use the dollar to adjust the value, what is the dollar value for 2023 and the dollar value for 2024? The 2023 is $46 billion, while 2023 is $34 billion. It means that the provision per head for 2024 is $150 per head, while 2023 was $208 per head. That provision cannot actually, because when we said that the average Nigerian is living on edge with a minimum wage of $400 per year and per capita income of $1,755, and then the budgetary provision is even decreasing, it means that there is not going to be respite for the average Nigerian, for the Nigerian consumer, or the aggregate household consumption, and that has very serious implications for business, for firms. Because if the household consumption is constrained, then it means that corporate performance is going to be constrained. And don't forget that interest rate is going to remain high for the whole of 2024. And IMF is projecting that average inflation for 2024 will be 23%. That is going to be a hard time for businesses. And so if you combine all of these things for businesses, that means that there is high risk of corporate mortality, financial instability, and that will not sound very well for the health of the economy. And I think these things should be part of what the government should put in focus in further consideration of the budget provisions.
Right, I guess consumers need to breathe for businesses to survive going forward. Thank you so much, Clement Igbanugo, economist, Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, there we have it. Drilling down on the September data, inflation data that came out yesterday. Now, let's get a check on what's happening in the UK. Joining me now is Juliana. Great to have you, Juliana. Good morning. So we have that data right out this morning. Shows that wage growth is for the first time since January, while numbers in payroll employment, that's falling back. Break this number down for us.
That's absolutely right. Good morning, Luddy. We have had data from the Office for National Statistics, where typically we're supposed to have a wholesale look at the UK labour market, but we haven't got that this morning. In fact, the Office for National Statistics has said that the official unemployment data, which we were expecting at about 7:30 a.m, will not be published until Friday, because I think they're still scrambling to collate some information which has come in late. So we don't have that figure. So we still believe that unemployment is about 4.3%. But, of course, economists are focused on other areas of the labour market, including the amount of vacancies that we have on offer, and also wage growth, because we know that wage growth is partly fueling inflation. So we have seen that in the 3 months to August, wage growth is at 7.8%. So this is about a percentage higher than inflation, which is a good thing, because we know we are going through a cost of living. I know you just were discussing the cost of living crisis in Nigeria. We definitely cannot compare it to what's happening on the ground there, but certainly people in this country are still struggling. So Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, has reacted to the wage growth and saying that it's quite good. It's a good thing thing that people's wages are rising faster than inflation. However, considering that we have seen in the past 14 consecutive hikes of the interest rate by the Bank of England, there are fears that perhaps if this wage growth figure triggers the wrong response to the Monetary Policy Committee, then that 5.25% we're at could be hiked up even further. So that's a concern. Another takeaway from the ONS data this morning is that job vacancies are beginning to fall, which does indicate that perhaps the labour market is cooling, so perhaps there will not be a fear of a recession for about 16 months, particularly after the pandemic. There was a record number of vacancies, and lots of people were working from home, lots of people were suffering with long COVID. So at a point, it was a very good time to look for a new job in the UK, but we are starting to see that vacancies are falling. The City of London is starting to hire again. That's a good thing. But as I said at the beginning of this chat, we do not have the complete data, which is quite rare from the ONS, so we won't get the official unemployment rate until Friday.
Yeah, it's quite a lot of data coming out there. But we see engineering specialists, that's Rolls-Royce, have confirmed the loss of about 2,500 jobs. Why is Rolls-Royce cutting jobs at this time?
Yeah, not great, actually, especially if you are one of those unfortunate people that are waking up to news that your job is gone. This is just to reiterate, not Rolls-Royce, the luxury car maker. This is Rolls-Royce Holdings, the aero engine maker, who have actually really struggled over the past couple of years, particularly during the pandemic when the skies shut down. So they weren't making any money there. In fact, during the height of the pandemic, Rolls-Royce actually cut about 9,000 roles. Now, unfortunately, for the UK jobs market, it does appear that the majority of these jobs that will be axed could be coming from here. They are headquartered in Derby, which is just in the north of England. I believe they have about 36,000 staff there, many of them very closely tied with the Ministry of Defence, considering, as I've just said, that Rolls-Royce do create engines. Also, they have quite a large staff based in Germany. I believe they employ about 11,000 there. Many of these jobs are expected to also be axed there. And I think, to be honest with you, Laddie, it's part of the same thing. It's just very difficult times at the moment. I believe in a statement, bosses at Rolls-Royce Holdings have said they're doing this to remove duplication and basically to have more money in the coffers so they can innovate in other areas. But again, as I said, not great for the jobs market in the UK, particularly as we are getting to Christmas. It's just an awful time to lose a position, isn't it?
Yeah, we don't like it when companies and businesses actually cut jobs. That's a bad sign for the economy. Thank you so much, Juliana, for the update. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a look at what's happening with the local markets now. See, domestic equities market commenced the week's trading on a bearish note following late sell pressures on Stanbic. Consequently, the all-share index declined by about 0.2%. If you look at the board dev for the NGX to see the equities market now, let's get a check on what's happening with the equities market. We see it's down, closed for yesterday, 0.24%, and the equity cap sitting at 36 trillion, maintaining that level. Year-to-date, gains still maintained at 30%, even though we have food inflation at about 30%. Let's look at the trading activity. We see volume is down compared to what we had on Friday, 3.57%. Value, 3.55 billion naira. That was value of all the stocks traded on the exchange yesterday, down 14.8% compared to last time. Deals sitting at 5,966. We had more deals yesterday to close. Let's look at the sectoral performance. See banking there, snapping and continuing that bullish move, 0.94%. Even with that bullish close, the market still turned down due to industrial goods there, dropping 0.06%. Insurance dropped 0.44%. Oil and gas, that was a major drag there. The oil and gas counter, 0.27% down. So we see banking, consumer goods maintaining the green, while all these three indices drag the market down. Let's look at the top trades now, see who's topping the trades for the equities market. See, well, okay, there, we'll get those top trades later on, but that's the move there. FMDQ securities market there, we see the bonds, FGM FGM bonds. We'll get the details about this FGM bonds that were sold yesterday. That's tomorrow. Let's bring in Ambrose Amondia now, CRO Invest Data Consulting, joining me via Zoom. Great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, still about inflation data there. They come out about 12 yesterday in the afternoon, and definitely trade was on, at that time. Is that why we saw that negative bearish performance yesterday on the equities market?
Yeah, I would say not really. I would say that it's kind of a market reacting to information that's coming from left and right, all eyes on the NS, all eyes on the people that don't hit the market. But I believe that anywhere in the world, inflation is never the friend of the economy. But for those in the investment world, with inflation, you can always position your portfolio to where you see there's value. Now that we are seeing inflation hitting, 6.7 to 5, it has put most of the investors or traders in fixed income market in red position, negative more red position. But why in equity space? That's why I say I didn't answer your question yes of what happened yesterday, because I believe that as any season is drawing closer in a moment from now, investors will looking at how can we hedge against this inflation. And the only way you can do that is going to companies that has that capacity that even when they increase their price, they will be safe in their word, in their product. That means they will post greater earnings that will impact their dividend payout at the end of the day. And every investor is against what? To make money in the future, and that is why you are investing. I believe that for those of us that are in equity space, with market year to date above what inflation figure of 26.72, because year to date market have recorded 30.80. But that is the only instrument that is above inflation. Compared to what we're seeing in a fixed income market, clearly Treasury be 9.25. Even yesterday we saw the option of the federal fund. The highest there is about 6.82, 16.82. That means it's still under negative return. I believe that is why, for me, investors in the market should not panic. Especially look at what is happening globally. We are seeing that the escalation, in the Middle East is slowing down. It's not escalating. That means there is potential. Even at that rate, we are seeing that markets across the West are closing in the green. And I believe companies that result within this period, especially the banking stock from those that mature the economy, the Western world, is positive. And that trend is likely to continue in Nigeria here because our banks have done well before now. And because of high interest rates and other things that the banks are doing, especially their trade, and most of them going into a holding company, I expect to see a better banking number that also impact their price. Yes, I'm not surprised that banking will saw renewed buying interest in banking stock, gaining 0.93 to close the market yesterday. For me, it's a good one. But what we saw in the consumer goods standard is a lot of the major news that has been consummated by the trading companies, Dangote Sugar, and Nascom, and Dangote Rice. I believe that before the end of the year, this matter will be consummated. On that, people are in position seeing value in this matter, because we have seen what have done in the last 2 years they listed. If that happens, we are going to see value in Dangote food coming. And that's why people are taking advantage of that. For pulling back, we saw in insurance and industrial, for me, is an opportunity for those that are not insurance stock to take advantage, because the rate hike in terms of premium at the beginning of this year is played out for insurance companies. That means any pullback insurance stock make your argument attractive for investors to buy into them. But I believe that for us that are in this market, it is time for you to invest to go with knowledge, not just pulling back, but also have a plan that you are trading. Don't allow the trade of another person influence you, because you know yourself to fund and also you know what you want to achieve in the market. For me, the market is still very, very much in order, but don't be greedy. Yes, I said earlier, inflation is never a friend of anybody, either the economy or the regulators. As we speak now, the monetary policy will be at the corner, because we're going to put a lot of challenge to them in the next MPC meeting. What are they going to do with the inflation hitting 26.7? That means, are they going to hike rate again? And economy that is tight already, if you hike rate to attract foreign investors, Nigeria economy will be going down. If you bring that down, I believe that these are what they're going to balance in their next world MPC meeting.
All right, Ambrose, let's you're still talking about, the inflation numbers there, 26.72%. And we see year-to-date gain for the equities market at about 30%. Would you say the equities market is really beating inflation at this point? Looking at that gap, doesn't look much. Hope I'm not being Oliver Twist here.
I would say you are going over this already, because I'll tell you, many stocks on the exchange return 100 and above in terms of gain. Year to date alone, I will tell you about 20 stocks that return 100% and above for 2023. That means that those stocks are beating inflation by all standards. And also the market also, if the index that measure the market is around 30.8%, already we're seeing inflation rate to see. Instead, that means as we're expecting more better number, you'll see more performance in equity space, because those companies that posted impressive Q1, Q2, if they continue in Q3, the price will go up, then we still create more value for investors.
Yeah, quite interesting. Some of those stocks have given quite incredible gains from the first half of 2023. We've seen about 700%, 400%. Quite impressive, I must say. Well, let's look at the 43 items readmission. Now, I did see yesterday, Okomu Oil did get on the losers counter yesterday. Did that have anything to do with the 43 items readmission?
Yes, it has. No, I would say that this is the time for our monetary policy and the fiscal to sit down and fine-tune their decision. Before now, we're seeing that the what we call backward integration has helped a lot of companies to come up in Nigeria. And also, because of ban on those ones, they have markets already in Nigeria here, which have sustained this company operation. With the CPN lifting of this ban, I will tell you, they're going to be a competitive market for all those industries and all those companies. Already, if a company like Okomu stock is coming down, and that of a press food is sending a signal. That means their market where they've enjoyed the kind of a dominance now importing oil, because oil is among the things they lifted. Even it might come at a cheaper price, but the only thing I have that because of the high exchange rate, might not see more oil coming in. But we are not encouraging industrialization in Nigeria with this policy. That's why I say fiscal and monetary should rethink on their policy. Yes, they want to kind of induce competition or kind of what is happening in the parallel market, black market. I agree with them, but you need to think your policy through, because this alone will not bring the pressure on that market down. Because if you do this, you are killing your own industrial sector, which every economy around the world is trying to encourage inner growth in terms of industrialization. Now with this policy, you are killing your own, importing more, you are making the unemployment also to be on the high side. For me, I think they should retain on this decision they are taking.
All right, yeah, mixed reactions do continue to trail the 43 items readmission. Thank you so much. It was great having your perspective, Amber Samodian, CRO Invest Data Consulting. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's get a check on other markets. Now, let's take a look at what's happening with the crypto market. You see the color yesterday was all mostly green, still quite green right now, but we're seeing some pockets of red there with profit taking happening right there in the crypto market. Let's look at these sentiments right now. 52 points, still neutral right now. It's not yet got into greed. We're seeing investors not on greed mode yet, still quite neutral. Let's look at the top cryptocurrencies we track now. We see Bitcoin there holding up $28,163 this morning, 0.93%. Got that big jump yesterday. Did touch about 30,000 yesterday. Ethereum still holding 1,500 level, didn't get to the 1.6 level, 0.11%. BNB there pulling back after jumping above that $214 level, $212.97, 0.21% down, and we're seeing pullbacks all the way down to XRP, 0.48%. So let's get a sense of what happened in the market now. Gloria Chimelu, financial market analyst, joins me now. Great to have you, Gloria. Good morning.
Good morning, Larry. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so fake out yesterday, that fake Bitcoin ETF news pumped Bitcoin to about 30,000 yesterday. Is this how this market is going to be swayed by fake news?
Okay, yes, the pump yesterday was crazy. It actually came from Cointelegraph's social media, on Twitter, and Cointelegraph tweeted that BlackRock's ETF has been approved. So that's why we saw a lot of a huge pump yesterday. It resulted in about $100 million in liquidation, and after the price went up, it came straight back down. A lot of sellers were actually shorting the market when Cointelegraph tweeted that the news was okay. First, the tweet was reportedly. Cointelegraph said it was reportedly approved. Then it deleted the tweet and made an apology. So that really shook up the market. Yesterday, Bitcoin moved from $27,200 to $30,000, and
so how do you?
Yes.
So how do you guard against this kind of trades? It's fake news, but a lot of people bought definitely at 30,000, but we're seeing a drawdown now. What do you do as a trader? You know, you hear that kind of news. You just go straight and buy?
Okay. No. For example, it's very tempting to make decisions based on news, because news moves very fast. But if you're a trader and you're entering into a short position yesterday, both short and longs got liquidated actually, because in the initial news, it shot up, Bitcoin shot up more than 10% up, and then it just came down. So where we're seeing kind of $28,000 right now, where it is right now, still pulling back a bit. So news moves very fast. So as a trader, and it's also very confusing as a trader if you've done your technical analysis the previous day, and you hear this news, it invalidates your trade, and then it actually turns to a short later on. So it's kind of tricky getting this trade, but I would advise getting into trade unless the news is confirmed. Then the market will react accordingly.
Yeah, quite a difficult one for a trader to decide there, because while you're trying to confirm the news, and the news, is actually true, then the trade might actually leave you. So I can imagine not easy being a trader. So we're seeing big-time investor Kathy Wood is predicting multiple Bitcoin ETF approvals, going forward. Do you think she's onto something here?
Well, I don't think so, because the current SEC chair, Gary Gensler, we know him as someone that's not really enthusiastic about cryptocurrency. I mean, we saw it with the case of Ripple, Ripple finally winning their ruling after months and months of lawsuits and going to court. So I think that if a Bitcoin ETF is going to be approved, it will actually take more time for the SEC to approve others, because obviously this is something that the SEC is still looking into, in as much as they want to protect consumers. But we've also seen how news around an ETF can break or make the market. So I think the SEC want to be very careful about approving multiple ETFs as well. I think it's going to come one at a time.
Right. I guess it's not also easy being a regulator, for this market. Thank you so much, Gloria Chimelu, financial market analyst. Thank you.
Thank you, Lad, for having me.
All right, we'll flip over to the top gainers counter now. Let's see who's topping that counter. We'll see Solana. Yeah, Solana getting a big boost from that news yesterday. 5.060%, $23.86. Not seeing Solana on the top gainers counter for a while now, getting a boost yesterday. Next, so also not seeing that one, 2.52%. And IOTA, 14 cents, 1.99%. Let's look at the top losers this morning. We see the top losers counter. We see Loom topping that counter, one of the OGs in the market there. Double-digit loss, 24.46%. And we see MakerDAO, $1,396. Down 5.54%. So that's the sentiment in the crypto market is still neutral at 52 points. So investors still having to deal with a lot when it comes to that ETF, that Bitcoin spot ETF approval. So that's a wrap on the program. Don't forget to visit www.channelstv.com for more updates. Also follow us on social media. From me and the team right here from Channels HQ, Lagos, it's bye for now.